I think it's also worth just thinking through some of the incentives of this. So, if there's one giant spark that ends up winning, or as like whatever, as a Pareto distribution, I mean, you definitely want to be one of those signers and get some of that sweet economics. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Lightspark is obviously very well positioned for that, which is great. I'm an investor in Lightspark, exciting. But what's going to be interesting to see on two fronts. One, them competing with Stripe, as Stripe is going for their much more permissioned. I'll be very curious to see, like if the old world institutions end up going more this route where they get better security and better economics, or if Stripe can whatever kind of get them there first.
Well, also when we analyze this and discuss it, we got to, I think, largely separate stablecoins or Bitcoin payments, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking stablecoins.
Right. So I just wanted to point that out.
But one other critically important question though, because as I think about where this could go, all of these are very permission with the entity. A question I have is, could you do an entity where the rules, like the entity itself is a federation and the rules are set in stone? So what I mean by that is, in this world, my understanding is, if Lightspark or Stripe or whoever starts the entity and there's the rules there of like, I don't know, I guess the signature threshold can't be changed, or maybe that rule can be changed. I don't know. But is there a way that you could have, for example, 5 anonymous or pseudonymous actors on the internet come together and say, we're going to operate an entity together. We're each going to be operators, and, you can't retroactively change. You need 3 of us, 5 to sign. That's the rule forever.
I don't see how you can guarantee that it's not going to change.
Interesting. I need to think more about that.
I mean, can we just update software on a server? Right?
Well, to be clear, with the Fediment, you could guarantee that, right?
I don't see how. The only I don't see how you can possibly guarantee that it won't change. You could maybe make it so that the wallets know that there's a change. Mm-hmm. Like if you had verifiable computing.
Yeah.
So if you do make a server change, then the client could say like, oh, that's changed.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you have a threshold, right, where you say, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding this, like, I need, in order to, well, yeah, I guess you already have the unilateral exit, because I was going to say, like, if you wanted to say guaranteed the rules in the future won't change, I guess no one would be able to take the Bitcoin out of the system and run without the threshold signature that was set. That's true for all of these scenarios.
Yeah, so I think there'd be, like, for all the coins that, like, if you do a policy change, maybe all the existing coins are committed to the old policy.
Got it. Okay.
But once swapped to new coins, it would be the new policy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think you gave a specific example that Wallet of Satoshi is working with Lightspark. Is there capacity as an operator on Lightspark's entity?
I think they're just using it.
No, they're a wallet that uses Spark and Lightspark's entity.
So,
like again, the only operators I'm aware of is Flashnet and Lightspark. I'm only aware of one entity and 2 operators in that entity.
So the way an entity gets kind of market position in this ecosystem is by having a lot of payments flow through them, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not communicating well. To me, the entity part's very straightforward. You're a business that wants to make money. You're a payments business.
You're a bank, yeah, or a payments business.
And then you run the Spark software as an operator. You bring on at least one other operator, so you have a better regulatory position, and that's why you do it. And then you want lots of wallets, lots of users, lots of payments.
And to be clear, that
your job, I get that people like to make money. That's not the open question. The open question is how. Like, do you develop and nurture an ecosystem of wallets that depend on you or that route through you somehow?
Yes, you want as many wallets to use you as possible. You want as many users as possible, as many payments as possible, and then you charge a fee.
And to be clear, you could charge a fee. I'd see it at least 2 places. Maybe there's more.
Well,
one is when you're
3, right? I mean, I already mentioned 3.
So each of the 3 players could charge a fee.
Yeah.
So to be clear, because I was thinking you make money off of market making with the Lightning Network. You make money on being the liquidity provider and swapping these like tree leaves around. But you could, in theory, also just like, again, kind of rent seek and just say, hey, I'm just going to make 20% of everything because it's my customers. And I create the entity. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, what, yeah, I mean, I think if you're the entity, you would want more than 20%.
Well, yes. Okay. But
again, so let's say there's one entity, two operators, and then I think, and the entity, the operator that is the entity would take an 80% cut. The other operator gets 20%. That's for the Spark fee.
Right.
Then there's SSPs as well. Okay. And so if you're, and like, we can give a concrete case. Lightspark is both, they're all three, the SE, the SO, and the SSP.
Right.
So they can also make money, and they publish their figures. For their SSP, they charge 15 basis points on any amount coming into the system and 25 basis points for any amount going out of the system.
Cool. That makes sense.
They also run lightning nodes.
So they make money on that too.
Yeah. So they will make money in all three components.
So to be clear, what I'm getting at though, in both of those cases, and again, this is a little bit of my cynical hat for anyone doing this, but that's a service fee. I provide a service. My service is I'm providing liquidity, or I'm like providing the gateway to the broader internet, right? So like I'm providing a service and you're paying me for that service, and there's a free market competing, and that drives the cost down. If I'm the entity owner, when I said the 20%, I was thinking, and whatever, but maybe it's going to be more egregious, 80%. What I'm saying there is I'm rent seeking. Like I'm literally just saying, I'm not going to provide any service besides bringing my customers and just like brand.
Yep.
Like, well, I guess that's
I don't understand. Like 20% or 80% is egregious. Like that's 20 or 80% of what? The what is what can, but it's clearly rent seeking.
Yeah. but this is my point, is eventually you could outcompete that. So like again, this is the whole beauty of, I guess, open source software and where I see things trending. In the early days, yes, the Stripes or whatever of the world will quote unquote rent sync by just like, hey, I already have my customers plug into me. What I'm saying is you could, in the future, you could have a pseudonymous group of banker, like people that come together, and it's like our fees are radically lower because the only place we're taking a fee is on the liquidity services, which is that's a service.
Sure. Being synonymous seems orthogonal to that.
Sure.
Like you could have Coinbase and River and Block create an entity to compete, and they charge no fees.
Yes. Other than the liquidity fees that are necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think this, it's an unfortunate outcome if there's only one Spark entity, or, Spark becomes a really popular technology. Lots of wallets use it, lots of payments, lots of users, and there's only one entity. That's not a healthy outcome, for at least from the Bitcoin side. That's why I think my own opinion on this might vary with stablecoins versus Bitcoin. I mean, my view on this, stablecoins wise, I'd love to see Spark, and specifically Lightspark, do really well here versus like Tempo and Arc and Base and all these other,
for sure,
Tron and stuff like that. Just like Taproot Assets as well from Lightning Labs. Like it would be nice to see them succeed. From a Bitcoin standpoint, I'm very excited about what Spark can, how it improves the user experience. And so hopefully it helps usher in more wallets. And how much time we should talk a little bit about that user experience part as well.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the potential that Spark can have on the user experience for Bitcoin wallets. I would be very scared though of a world where there's only one entity, then like Lightspark becomes the Visa of Bitcoin payments, and that's a very unhealthy outcome for Bitcoin. So it's far healthier if we have many Spark entities, and also other technologies like Lightning, Arc, Cashew, Fediment, some subset of them succeeding as well. Each of these systems has trade-offs. We're going to maybe show a table today to show those trade-offs. Maybe we'll have to do it in a new episode, or a future episode, because we only talked about Spark today. But each of these systems has trade-offs. There's no silver bullet. Spark is not perfect. Like I said, there's trust, and also the unilateral exit is extremely expensive. So hopefully we see different use cases, different user bases use these different systems, and it's more distributed than just one entity controlling everything.
I think it might also help to understand the dynamics of the ecosystem, or the imagine, how this ecosystem might emerge. If we were to, you mentioned Wallet of Satoshi. Does Wallet of Satoshi, my understanding the history, and you can correct if this is wrong, but they were available in US app stores, and then they kind of withdrew from US app stores because they were concerned about a regulatory issue. I think the thing that hit Phoenix, they were worried about kind of a similar thing hitting them. And so they withdrew, and presumably with this Spark thing, that gives them a little more regulatory cover or clarity that enables them to operate more freely. So I wonder if we can, just to sort of understand the ecosystem better, why does Wallet of Satoshi choose to operate with this Spark entity, or like what would cause them to choose another one?
Well, so Wallet of Satoshi and Phoenix were like very different.
Okay.
It's true that events at the same time led each of them to exit the US in a similar time frame. But Wallet of Satoshi was a custodial Lightning wallet.
They were literally just YOLO.
They held like hundreds of millions or billions of customer money, and they weren't a licensed business. So that was very, very regulatory risky. Phoenix is self-custody. So it's just two completely different scenarios. But even they were worried about regulatory, because we just saw people get convicted who are running self-custodial services.
And not that we need to go all down the rabbit hole, but even there's some gray area, right? It's like if they automatically hook up to your LSP for the Phoenix thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance, but there's definitely not nuance between custodial and I mean, Wallet of Satoshi was like out and out
just illegal,
right?
Custodial. I was going to say custodial.
Okay, custodial, sure.
So now getting to your question, David. Why are they motivated to switch to Spark? Well, two reasons. One, it's not clearly custodial. It's there's an online debate about what to call the Spark system, because Lightspark and Wallet of Satoshi market it as fully self-custody, and that's a big stretch. It's definitely a trusted system, but it's certainly not the same as a custodial system as well. It's somewhere in between. So someone coined the term trustodial.
Yeah, and there's similar debates on all of these things. Like that, and this is a challenge, right? And like, hopefully, this is something you don't really have to explain to end users, because it's all like, I mean, we're frying people's brains, including our own, right here. Same thing with Cashew. It's like, well, if you have a mint, well, yes, you custody the IOU, but it's not really self-custody either.
But Cashew, like
that's
like
even
one
more
person
custodial.
can steal everyone's money in one moment in time. So it's very different. Spark is definitely better in that respect.
It's more like Fediment than Cashew.
Yeah, and
potentially even better.
It's pretty similar to Fediment trust model.
Yeah.
But but in any case, it's I mean, the number one reason is Wallet of Satoshi just outsources the regulatory risk to Lightspark. I mean, that's why, as a wallet developer, if you're worried about getting in trouble, it's like, oh great, they're going to take the risk.
So is that sort of like what we would look at as the emerging ecosystem is going to be people who want to build wallet experiences but don't want to sort of,
and that actually helps answer too. Like if you vibe code some app, you don't want to become like you don't want to become an entity because you don't want to go to prison, right? So if you're worried about going to prison or getting fined or getting in trouble with the government because you're running a MSB, or the government claims that you are, even if even if you don't believe it is. That's why you don't do it. So that's why obviously app developers aren't going to just like nonchalantly launch an entity. You have to be quite serious about
it's more like a neobank. You're sort of in the business of trying to cultivate and nurture a bunch of liquidity and payments through you.
It is a bank. It's just a different form.
Yeah.
So Austin says, on the plus side, if Spark becomes like Visa, they're running open source software that then allows an upstart competitor to compete while also being interoperable.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, so yes, Spark open source technology, as we said earlier, others can fire up their own entity and compete. And it's interoperable, but there's still business network effects here. So it's you can still project a future where one company would would dominate.
But to his point, I mean, it's still, even though that's true, it's still like infinitely better than the status quo.
Yeah.
Where like, at least you're still interoperable with Lightning.
Let's fast forward to that future. So let's say like Lightspark dominates and all the wallets use it, all the users, and then they do what any company would do in that position, rent seek and increase their prices and make more money.
Right.
And then, so it kind of depends on the dynamics of it. Like if there's like 50 different wallets globally, each with similar size, no one, then who has the power? Like Lightspark has all the power. But if Wallet of Satoshi is like 90% of the payments, then they have more power. Like Wallet of Satoshi would then just start their own entity, right? So that's another thing too. Like a wallet might, it doesn't really make sense as a wallet to become an entity out of the gate. Like, but once you become popular and have a big business, then you just cut out whoever your entity is and just start your own entity.
Which is what Stripe is doing with Visa right now.
Yeah. So I think a realistic competitor would be the popular wallets would become their own entity, or they'd join forces, even though they're competitors, they join forces to cut out this other middleman. So I think that's what we could expect to see happen there.